Welcome to Discovery Watch with John Kaiser.
I'm your host, Jim Goddard. Welcome back to the show, John.
Jim, pleasure to be back on the show.
John, endurance gold is up sharply since we last talked. Does it have a discovery?
Well, Jim, we last talked about it quite recently. February 3rd, the stock was 18 cents at the time. It was the day after it announced the first 3 whole results for the RC program that it undertook on the Reliance project in November late last year. And at the time, I called it the beginnings of a discovery, but since then, it has become clear that this is now a discovery delineation story. And just to provide a bit of background, Reliance is a project that's found at least since the 80s. In fact, older prospectors going back to the original Braylorn days have poked around in that area. And Braylorn, of course, is a 4 million ounce, 17 gram per ton, fantastic system that has been pretty much mined out or shut down when the gold price at $35 wasn't good enough anymore. And Talisker Resources is now revisiting that project, chasing these orogenic veins deeper, trying to show that, yes, there's a lot more of this high-grade gold present. Plus, they're also looking at potential open pit mining of part of that system. But Reliance is on the other side of the Bendor Pluton. It is higher up in the orogenic system because of the presence of antimony. That means it's a different chemistry, but it's still the same sort of fluid type deposition model. You're just higher up in the system. And the past exploration had delivered some very interesting gold grades, but the previous operators could never make it hang together or make sense. And so the project pretty much languished until Endurance was able to acquire it in late 2019. And they had a slow start last year. They could only do sort of sampling type prospecting mapping work because it took forever to get a drill permit. When they finally got in October, they just had time to do an shallow RC program. And that was justified because the upper sort of 30 to 60 meters is very oxidized. You cannot get any meaningful core recovery. So they wanted to know to what extent, how does gold behave in the upper part. Yeah, you don't get a lot of structure from that, but yes, we can do this RC program. And they managed to get about 16 holes done before they were chased out by the arrival of Christmas. Now, when I talked about it earlier this month, it was because these first 3 holes had a couple of very important developments. One was that it showed the arsenic appeared to be well correlated with the gold values. When they had put all the chips in the boxes, they had run an XRF unit over it and determined pretty high arsenic values over portions of the holes. And when the gold values came in, they correlated very well with these arsenic readings. But the more important development, which is why this stock has started to get legs and was up to 41 cents the other day, is they realized that instead of this being subvertical vein type system, it was actually a shallow 35-degree southwesterly dipping system that was running a 15 to 16 meter true width. And that helped explain why the past drilling, which was chasing a different geometrical model, wasn't really coming up with results that hung together. But what really kicked things off last week was a news release which published the results of a biogeochemical survey they had done last year. Now, they attempted soil sampling over the property, and one of the legacies of this property is nobody has ever systematically tackled this from a scientific exploration point of view. And when Robert Boyd took over this project, that's what he set out to do. The problem with this property is it's blanketed with a pumice ash cover that came from the Meager Creek volcano when it exploded about 200,000 years ago, which means that you have to dig way too deep to get into the soil above the bedrock that might have picked up any of the elements and gold that might have come from mineralization in the bedrock. But they did some experimentation and discovered with vegetation anomalies and realized that the Douglas fir that grows in this area, whose roots will go through the ash cover into the soil beneath, seems to pick up arsenic and store it in the needles. So once they figured that out, they did a big survey across the southwestern portion of the property, covering all of the Royal, Shear, and Treasure structures running all the way from Carpenter Lake to the property boundary, and that's about 3.5 kilometers. And when they got the results, it was clear that the structural corridor of the Treasure Shear and the Royal Shear, about 350 meters wide, two parallel faults, which they now think are bounding faults for the mineralized system. The first 2 kilometers had very elevated arsenic values, telling them that, wow, this whole thing is fertile, at least with arsenic. And it was the recognition earlier this month from the holes that, yes, the gold maps very well to the arsenic, which was confirmed a couple days after the survey was put out, when they published 2 more holes that stepped a little bit farther to the southeast within the Eagle Zone, which also delivered good gold grades correlating with the XRF arsenic readings, which they now say, okay, the arsenic is a key marker for the gold system. We now have a target at least 2 kilometers long, 350 meters wide. The zones are about 15 meters or so thick. They dip southwest at 35 degrees. There's potential for stacked versions of this. It's a classic kind of dilation system with riddle structures, and they plan to go back in there in April doing more RC programs. They've got about they have 11 holes unassayed. 2 do not have high arsenic readings, so they don't have high expectations for those. But the 6 that are still from the Eagle Zone and the 3 from the Imperial Zone, where all the historical drilling had been done, they all have high arsenic readings from the XRF unit. So those, when they eventually come in, are expected to also deliver these similar high grade gold values. But it isn't just this that is making the stock go up in the past week. The company is busy trying to raise several $1 million to fund the program, to go back with RC drilling to map out the rest of this corridor, to then follow up with core drilling so that it can chase these zones down plunge, and also drill deeper to look for stacked versions of it, all to put together a whole number of zones that could eventually add up to 1 million+ ounces of 5 gram per ton or so gold grade, which would be a very significant discovery. Part of this could actually be open pittable. So the project has gone from this weird thing that was never really tied together to being a very interesting play. But the market in the past week or two has realized that in the company's portfolio is a project in southeastern Yukon called Bandito. And when Robert Boyd took over as CEO in 2010 after Duncan McIver passed away earlier in the year, he auctioned this property from True North, which was an emerald hunter in the Yukon, and he spent about $780,000 in 2011, 2012 doing prospecting, sampling, and trenching of the rare earth and niobium potential of this project. There's also some strange nickel copper showing to the southeast of the property, which made him originally think this was an IOCG system, but he realizes now it is not an IOCG system. Whatever it is that caused the nickel and copper to be there is unexplained. It appears to have nothing to do with the niobium and the rare earths, because those were caused by a nepheline cyanide intrusion that took place about 650 million years ago, and it intruded even older Proterozoic rocks within the country rocks that this 6 kilometer by 3 kilometer body intruded. The alteration created these zones called phenites, which are an alteration product, and these have high rare earth values, 3% plus, but they are light rare earth values. What was interesting was in the work that they did a soil sample survey over the southern portion of the cyanide body, which itself, they call it the red cyanide. It has never been drilled ever since being recognized through a radiometric anomaly back in the 70s. A couple groups have looked at it, including Unicol Molycorp in 1987, but it has never been drilled. It's covered with a lot of trees, and it's got plenty of overburden with a sporadic outcrop here and there. And this thing showed, yes, there is a coincident niobium and rare earth anomaly sitting on the southeastern portion of this northwest-oriented body, which represents billions and billions of tons of material. And this is not a carbonatite like Mountain Pass or Bionoble. This is a per-alkaline intrusion similar to Nechalacho that Avalon owns in the Northwest Territories, and the Strange Lake project that Quest used to own, which straddles Labrador and Quebec. And what's interesting about these bodies is that the mineralogy tends to be more of a zircon silicate nature, and they don't get as high grade as the carbonatite deposits in terms of rare earths, but they tend to have elevated heavy rare earths. And the big thing today is, well, with the electric vehicle rollout, there is going to be demand for a lot more rare earth than the current mining infrastructure is supplying. And yes, there will be more light rare earth deposits built, especially outside of China, so that the rest of the world isn't at the mercy of Chinese export policy. But the heavy rare earths are a problem because they only come from China. They only come from these ion absorption clay deposits that are a weathering product. Once you mine them, you can't drill deeper and find more of them. And China itself is concerned that it may deplete these deposits before they don't need these metals anymore. And then the heavy rare earths, the key metals there are the dysprosium and terbium, which are added to the neodymium, praseodymium that make those powerful permanent magnets, and doping them with these heavy rare earths keeps them from losing their magnetism under high operating temperatures. So they don't need it for your laptop, the little motors that spin in your laptop, but they do need them for cars where things can get hot, even though you're not using an internal combustion engine anymore. So the world needs a future supply of heavy rare earths. And the company, after they finished in 2012, Robert Boyd liked it enough that he issued 5 million shares to lock up 100% of this project, and it sat there with a website page with lots of details, a technical presentation that goes for 30 pages with all kinds of stuff. And while I was browsing through this, I noticed a pie chart which was a classic heavy rare earth enriched pie chart. It was like 75% rare earths, and then there was also the more traditional Mountain Pass type of pie chart where it's like 90% light rare earths. And as I dug deeper, I realized that heavy enriched part came from a sample location inside the red cyanide body that has never been drilled and hadn't even been properly sampled until Endurance Gold took this on in 2011, 2012. And I realized, my gosh, this thing has a world-class scale. It's going to have all kinds of zonation variation inside it. It's never been drilled. We're seeing 3% plus heavy rare earth grade, or total grade, of which 75% is the heavy rare earths. The grades of these per alkaline systems tend to be lower. Strange Lake, which is the richest heavy rare earth enriched deposit in the world, is only about 1.5% total rare earths. So the markets realize that this project's sitting here in this part of southeastern Yukon, which looks remote but is only 65 kilometers from a road and small airport, is in an area where shale gas basin exists that's likely to be developed. The big obstacle is for the Liard First Nation to reach a settlement with the government for their land claims. If and when that happens, that area will be opened up. The whole area is withdrawn from staking right now, but the project is grandfathered. To do any drilling, they need to sit down with the Liard First Nation and do consultations. So it wouldn't be until 2022 that they get to drill this. But this year they can go back in there theoretically with a LiDAR survey to get a better sense of the zonation within the red cyanide and do more sampling, finish sampling the northern part of it, and then do trenching in the areas where they get the geochemical hotspots and try and get a handle on, are there significant zones of good total rare earth grades that are more than 50% enriched with the heavy rare earths. And it's this possibility that by 2022, Bandito could steal the show from the Reliance project as it delivers a major gold system. This is what's starting to attract investors to this story because they're getting two stories in one, with the second story probably becoming a spin out down the road because this is a world-class peralkaline intrusion with evidence that it may have gone enrichment to a degree not seen anywhere else in the world.
We'll have more with John Kaiser right after this.
Aben Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia and the Yukon, trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the OTCQB, symbol ABNAF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Aben's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at abenresources.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with John Kaiser. John, why is Harfang exploration trending higher?
Well, Jim, we talked about Harfang on January 13th while the company was still awaiting the final results of the geochemical assays of its till sampling program on the Serpent Project, which is located in the James Bay region of Quebec. It's to the southwest of Quebec Precious Metals Sakami Gold Project. And what's interesting about Serpent is that they have found showings with quite high-grade gold. The Sakami Project is a sediment-hosted low-grade gold system where the gold grade never gets much above 6 grams per ton. But they've had values up to 200 grams per ton in little showings. Most of this area of interest that they're focused on is covered by overburden and swamp, which is why they did this till sampling program after starting in 2019 when they originally focused on the Mista copper gold showing in the eastern part, and while doing broader exploration of this project realized that the government had mapped it as a boring tonalite. It was anything but that. In the eastern part, it had been invaded by gabbroic dikes, which made it a little bit more interesting. But as they did their own geophysical survey and saw this magnetic feature sort of slightly running northwest-west direction, and said, oh, this looks like a structural break, the kind that can bring fluids up from deep. And they realized also that just to the south of this stew structure was a large gabbroic or mafic intrusion that was of a gabbroic nature, which appears to have come up during a period of rifting between a continental margin and other rocks to the edge, and that this later on underwent extension, which created the opportunity for the fluids to come up and propagate through the cracks in that within the gabbro. They said this is a very interesting setting, and Francois Goulet thought there's some similarities to the Golden Mile, Mount Charlotte area of the Kalgoorlie district of the Yilgarn Craton in Australia. And And the Golden Mile is staggering. It has 62 million ounces of 5.5 gram gold within a, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 meter segment, and it has a similar type of, they call it dolerite in the Kalgoorlie district, a similar mafic type of intrusion that's undergone tremendous fracturing, and then that was subsequently pumped with fluids. Now, the idea that there could be something like the Golden Mile of the Kalgoorlie district in the James Bay lowland has everybody laughing, because the James Bay region is notorious as an also-ran. It has plenty of greenstone belts and stuff like that, but even Eleanor, the main gold mine in that region, is not truly world-class. So it's this place that juniors have been exploring for decades, but it has never really yielded the sort of discovery that makes everybody think this is a world-class district. Last year we got our hopes up when Azimuth showed that the Patwan zone on its Elmer project had very good gold grades of an orogenic nature, but so far we haven't seen that this extends beyond an isolated location of, several hundred meters by 100 meters type of a setting. Maybe there'll end up being more, but so far there's no evidence of a large gold mineralizing system in that area. But this area is interesting because the till sampling revealed a 6 kilometer by 2 kilometer golden till anomaly emanating down ice from this stew structure oversitting this gabbroic intrusion. And because they cannot really see the bedrock except in various parts where they scrape stuff away, and they've seen these large quartz veins which are barren and probably late stage, this 4,000 meter drill program that they started in February, consisting of 30 fairly shallow holes, this is in essence a geological scout drilling program, and they will tackle part of there's a gap of several hundred meters running for a good portion of the stew structure, which is a swamp, which didn't even yield golden till anomalies because the till is too deep to be accessible. They are drilling a fence of holes through that to see what that's all about, because this having been preferentially gouged out, that could mean an area of especially good preparation in terms of fracturing, that is a good setting for mineralization. But they're also drilling within the till anomaly to see how much displacement there is between the till sample and the bedrock source. And they have pristine gold grains, so they are pretty confident that south of the stew structure, up ice of which the till samples are empty, that there is a gold system present. It's 6 kilometer by 2 kilometer area of interest, and the stock is trending higher because finally, in the 4 years since the company got listed in 2017, this is the first time Harfang Exploration is doing a drill program. It's not a discovery yet. They will pull out in April, and we'll probably get all the results in probably late May or so. They know the mineralization can be both free gold and associated with pyrite. So if they're getting pyrite, they won't be able to see anything. They will need the assays. With assay turnaround still 6 to 8 weeks from delivery, we probably won't know whether they have a significant discovery until June. But the market may end up learning an awful lot about what the geology is like underneath all this swamp and overburden in an area that isn't greenstone anymore, but which Francois Goulet thinks used to be a greenstone belt that was digested later by tectonic forces. So it's not quite the same as the Golden Mile of the Kalgoorlie district, but it may have been the same at some point, and therefore just the idea that there could be something off the scale here, this is what's taking the stock higher, and there's not a huge amount of stock out, so if there is something big there's a huge upside potential from a discovery emerging at Serpent for Harfang Exploration.
We'll have more with John Kaiser right after this.
Engineer Gold Mines is focused on the exploration and development of the historic high-grade Engineer Gold Mine situated 32 kilometers southwest of Atlin, British Columbia. Engineer Gold Mines is fully permitted for surface and underground exploration with the drill program now underway. Engineer Gold Mines Limited trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol EAU. For more information, please visit us at engineergoldmines.com.
Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications, patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Welcome back. We're speaking with John Kaiser. John, why do you say it's showtime for Nevada exploration?
Well, the two key companies in Nevada that are both favorite recommendations of mine are Nevada Exploration Inc. with its South Grass Valley project and New Legacy Gold Corp. With its Rift Anticline project. New Legacy just put out the results for the hole 3 and 4 that they drilled in November, December of last year. And hole 4 got some additional, got gold intersections that were pretty decent. What was interesting about this is that the intersections are within the Roberts Mountain Formation, which showed up shallower than they expected, and it was beneath the Wemban 5, which is the target horizon in that region. And the whole Cortez Trend area that has Gold Rush, Cortez Hills, and Pipeline, the Wemban 5 is the carbonate sponge that has soaked up most of the gold that has been identified in this region. So this was a bit of a head-scratcher, and they think that they're peripheral to the actual sort of channel where the gold fluids came in, but they have $60 million in the treasury, and in mid-March they will bring an RC rig on there to drill holes, to basically put down casing through the volcanics, and then they'll bring in a core rig, one every month until they have 3 core rigs going to drill 1,200 to 1,500 meter deep holes into the lower plate stratigraphy that sits underneath this cover of volcanics and basalt that are much younger, that are unmineralized, and that have basically hidden this particular area, which has a footprint equivalent to that of the Gold Rush zone about 12 kilometers to the northwest, and it's never been explored. All the attention was to the east of it, where they now see that the gold mineralization there in the Iceberg, Serena area is a blend of younger epithermal style mineralization that came in during that northern Nevada rift period 15 million years ago. But some of the high-grade intervals that they got at Serena, Western Slope, and at Iceberg, those have been diagnosed as, yes, this is Carlin-style mineralization. So 35 million years ago, Carlin-type fluids did come into this area, but the Wemban 5 formation, which is the preferred depositional formation for the Carlin-type mineralization, it's quite thin in that area. But underneath in the Rift anticline areas, where they've seen sort of three anticlinal type axes within that area, blanketed by the younger volcanics. There, the Wemban 5 formation is substantially thicker, 175 meters thick. So there is a lot of sponge available for soaking up fluids. And they're going by this model that the Barrick Group developed at Pipeline and then applied elsewhere in the Cortez Trend of low-angle faults, bringing the fluids in from some deep-seated, vertical high-angle fault, and then propagating it upwards when they encounter other high-angle faults, which then feed it into these Wemban 5 formations. So they do not have a discovery hole yet, but they do have evidence that there was clearly stuff going on. The setting is right. And the 16 to 18 hole program, which will play out in the rest of the year, people are going to be keeping their fingers crossed all year, waiting for that discovery hole, which finds where were the conditions right for the gold to drop out in a very big way and form, 15, 20 gram per ton gold mineralization, such as is the case at Cortez Hills and at Gold Rush. I think perhaps they are relying too much on this low-angle fault story, because off to the west, it doesn't look like there's, room for a high-angle fault to have fed this stuff. So they may have to change the model something, but once they find it, it doesn't matter what the gateway was. You just then start stepping away from it. For now, it's a vector party. They need to drill these strategic holes and see how they relate to each other, and then start moving closer to where they can see that the alteration chemistry improve. And of course, when you start seeing the gold, well, then it's game on. And for Nevada Exploration Inc., it will start drilling in March next week. A program that's at least 3 holes on the South Grass Valley project. And this is interesting. It's entertained us for the past few years. However, the last time I talked about it was in late April last year, when it was clear that their drill program that they did, the shallow RC drill program last year, was a bust in terms of delivering the discovery hole we need to anoint South Grass Valley as a major discovery. What that program did do was demonstrate that, yes, this very large, highly altered lower plate window that's completely covered by gravel does fade out when you move westwards. And there's a deep-seated structure in the eastern part of Grass Valley, which they call the Water Canyon Structural Corridor. That now appears to be the primary deep-seated feeder for all the fluids. And it's clear this is a Carlin-type system. What's not clear was that it was super pregnant with gold. That is the missing piece here. The sponge that they're looking for here in the Carlin system itself, which has 70 million ounces, it's the Popovich Formation. In the Cortez area, it's the Wenban 5 Formation. That's the primary sponge. But none of these formations are present here. But in the work that they've done over the past couple of years, they've honed in on a formation which they call the CLM, which is short for Cambrian Aged Limey Mudstone. And it has clearly served as a preferential pathway for fluid travel. But where they have intersected it with both the core drilling in 2019 and the RC drilling in 2020, the gold grade is not present beyond, except maybe a modest spike where there are fractures in that. But this whole thing dips downwards into what they call the East Golden Gorge target, which is basically the area that intersects with the Water Canyon Structural Corridor, which itself, they know it extends for at least 7 kilometers. They've got drill permits in place to drill about a 3-4 kilometer segment of it. They'll be drilling 3 holes with the current sort of $2 million budget that they have, for which they raised money late last year, starting next week. And these holes will be drilled from east of this Water Canyon fault structure, drilled westwards to go through it, and then intersect that part where the CLM plunges into what is basically the fluid, the suspected fluid pathway. So this is showtime for this. If they drill these 3 holes into this and do not get evidence of better gold mineralization than they obtained with the drilling of this system farther away from this pathway, then this project will probably be dead. And similar for New Legacy in its Rift anticline, if by the end of the year they have not delivered the high-grade gold intersection that says it's game on for a significant column-type discovery that goes from target testing to discovery delineation, well, the curtains will likely come down on that also. So showtime for the two most important drill plays happening starting in the next few months in Nevada. Nevada Exploration Inc.'s South Grass Valley and New Legacy's Rift Anticline plays. Both of them, tremendous amount of information provided by the company. And I would suggest people who are looking at this Golden Lake farce that's playing out right now in the Jewel Ridge area, where they're claiming it is a column-type system, when in fact what they're intersecting is zinc and lead and silver enriched mineralization that's related to stuff mined in the past century in an area that's been Swiss cheesed with 360 holes by a company that doesn't even put scales on its maps, doesn't even have any information about the project, location of past holes or anything. And this disgrace of a company has managed to raise $9 million in the past few days after putting out a press release that managed to intersect a 3-meter interval, which they managed to stretch into a 24-meter interval of 9 grams per ton gold. And it seems to have pulled in every stupid speculator out there to participate in this thing, including the biggest fish in the pond.
John, thank you so much for the update.
You're welcome, Jeff.
We've been talking with John Kaiser, his website, kaiserresearch.com. I'm Jim Goddard.
Comments made on Discovery Watch are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any manner whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Archived online at HowStreet.com. Discovery Watch is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.